Hey, what is good today? It's your boy Supreme King, and I'm back with another banger, right? So I'm coming with a different style of video today, right? So usually, if you've seen my channel before, you probably know I mostly post Tekken. I've been posting a lot of Black Myth Wukong as well, and yeah, I've been enjoying doing those things a lot. And obviously, that's the reason why I post them. But there's also some other things that I enjoy a lot. One of them being, I love me some anime. I love Japanese culture. I love manga. I love Korean manga, which is Manhwua, if I'm not mistaken, and I also love Chinese manga, which is Manhwa. But like, I'm butchering the names, so for the sake of the video, I mostly will be using the terms Korean manga or Chinese manga if this eventually becomes a series and I end up talking about other mangas as well, right? But yeah, today I'm here on some recommendation type of deal, right? I'm here to just recommend, give a quick breakdown and my thoughts on one Korean manga specifically. I'm pretty sure it's Korean. I'm not 100% sure that I've just finished reading a couple of days ago, and it was a very pleasant surprise. I say a pleasant surprise because the name made it seem a like it was going to be a very generic type of story, and once I finished reading, it was like not exactly what I expected. It's still like a lot of generic aspects, so I can't lie on that much. It's not like all of a sudden it became the best manga in general that I've ever read, but it's definitely so good that I just felt like I want to talk about this with someone, right? And currently, I have no one in my life that like enjoys manga as much as I do, so they probably wouldn't be as interested. So why not just post it on the internet? Why not just find out what other people think like me and enjoy manga as well? You might never even heard of this one. So hey, if it's the first time you're hearing about it from me, like, and I just put you on some mad game, bro, come on, you gotta leave a like and a subscribe. That's the minimum you can do, right? So the manga in question, the Korean manga in question for today, the one I'm introducing to y'all is called Overpowered Sword, right? This one also goes by a couple of different names, and one app in particular that I use to read my manga more frequently is called Leveling Up with the Sword. So you might know it by a different name if you do know it, right? And it's a really good one. The synopsis is very basic. This is part of the reason why I thought it was just going to be very generic. But basically, the synopsis goes uh, very similar to the name, which is um, there's our main character, which is called Leon, right? Decides that he will overcome his rival, which is also called Leon. It's an important detail, so keep that in mind. Who's basically this second Leon is basically the genius of the academy that their students at, right? And so it's the same. It's the age old dynamic where like the rival is a genius that just has everything delivered to him in a golden platter, whilst our MC is basically the opposite. It doesn't have much to his name. It just has a lot of hard work and spirit, right? So that up until here, nothing is new, right? So this world is also very uh, I'm using the word generic a lot, which is kind of making it seem derogatory, but it's not. But it's a very common type of world. And what I mean by common is basically we have the same sort of characters that you'd find in this type of games, where it would be um, you have the warriors, which would use armor and swords. You have the mages, you have the cleric people that are devoted to the church. You'll have monsters like goblins, dragons, and all this kind of stuff. So it's very it's not new. It's basically it's just not new. It's not bad. I actually quite like this sort of dynamic, but it's just not new, and that's basically what I mean, right? So now that we're done with the intro, the way this video is going to be structured is I'm going to give you guys a little synopsis that will be consistent of the first 5 chapters of the manga. I'll try not to spoil anything much ahead unless it's absolutely necessary, but I will also be putting a disclaimer if I do end up spoiling something. After I give you guys the synopsis, I will be doing. what I personally think are positives about the manga, things I personally like a lot, things that I find to be negatives about the manga, so things that obviously I didn't like, and some things that are neutral. Neutral will be stuff that, like, in my opinion, maybe it was good but wasn't as well developed as it could have been or as it should have been, or maybe something that was bad, but it was bad, but it was done in a way that it was still tolerable. So I wouldn't put it like in the bad, right? So let's start with the synopsis, right? So as I was saying before, my our main character is called Leon, and the his rival is also called Leon, right? As I said before, that this is an important aspect because in this world there's been a prophecy made not too long ago that a Leon born in a certain date will be inheriting the hero sword, which is the overpowered sword spoken about in the title. They will inherit the hero sword, and they will then gain the powers of the previous hero, and their duty will be to defeat the demon king. Yes, there is also a demon king in this anime, in this manga, sorry. So yeah, obviously everybody that knows about this prophecy thinks that the genius Leon is the guy that is supposed to get the sword, right? And no surprises there. Right, and the way this, obviously, and the way the story develops is we start off at the academy, and the first thing we see is our main character Leon challenging the genius Leon to a fight, and at this point, he's basically the only one person left that is still willing to challenge the genius Leon, right? Because everybody else at this point they all got whooped. They've all been whooped, and no one's willing to even take their chances anymore. So they would just rather keep their heads low. And obviously, our boy has nothing to lose. Our main character has nothing to lose. He just wants to be stronger. He was born in the slums. He has nothing to his name. So obviously, he's just going to try himself against the stronger. And there's no one stronger than the genius Leon. So he's just going to do it. He has this sort of inferiority complex that he develops against the other Leon because the other guy has just got everything that anyone in that circumstances would want. He's handsome, he's strong. Um, the genius Leon, this is a small detail I forgot to mention. He does hide his background, so we don't exactly know where he's from, but it's so obvious that he's nobility, right? It's like they hide it, but they don't hide it well enough to the point where you can't guess. Oh, this guy is either very high in nobility or is just straight up royalty, right? We don't know for a fact within the first 5 chapters. We don't know for a fact that he is where exactly does he fit, but like it's very heavily hinted that he belongs to one of these groups, right? So basically, Leon, the main character, I'll be calling him just MC in order to avoid confusion. But yeah, the main character just has this inferiority complex, and because of that, he trains hard. He goes hard on training, and he just continuously going at it, right? In one of these training sessions, right, a sort of meteor like thing hits the ground next to him, right? And you probably guessed it, this meteor like thing is the overpowered sword, right? Why is this a bit weird? This is weird because the prophecy was made to the way the prophecy was structured is that it was supposed to the sword was supposed to come a year later, right? Than the actual date. The sword wasn't supposed to be there at the time. Okay, so that's some confusion in Leon in the main character's mind, and the sword is now speaking to him, because the sword was listening to him as he was training, and the sword like kind of felt his willpower as he was working out and training, and the sword decided to go with him, right? So obviously, like it was very clear from the beginning that I don't think anyone was surprised to know that he was the one who eventually was going to get the sword. It would defeat the whole purpose of the anime for him the manga for him to just not get the sword in the end. But yeah, he gets the sword. They have a little back and forth where initially he kind of says no sword, but then eventually gets convinced into getting the sword, and now he's in training because the sword has the spirit of the hero that he's inheriting the powers. Now, because the sword has come 1 year earlier than what it was supposed to be, he doesn't actually gain the powers of the sword straight away. So he's still regular old Leon. The only thing that changes is that he's now has an instructor, a sort of overpowered instructor in the hero, right? So his training changes. He's now He used to already train until passing out, but now he's really going at it. Um, yeah, and that's basically most of what happens in the first five chapters. We have this little spiral between him and between the main character and the genius Leon, right? But it's like it starts off in the first five chapters, but it doesn't end in the first five chapters. So I will just not go into much detail about him. But basically, the genius Leon sort of reveals himself without saying too much about him. He doesn't say exactly where he's from, but he does let him know that, like, I am different, I am built different, I have a family background, we're all different, and he's a genius, and he's all genius. He can see that Leon, the our main character, he can see that that hard work will pay off eventually. So when he comes up with a proposition of having a last duel between the genius and the MC. And if the genius wins, what the genius wants is for the MC to become part of his crew, basically become a servant, like his right hand man or some sort of deal, right? And this is basically where the first five chapters ends. Right after this, you're gonna have to read it if you want to find out more, right? Okay, so now that we got our synopsis out of the way, we're going to go through some positives. Now, in the positives, I'm not going to keep the positives just within the first five chapters. As of today, the manga has 111 chapters, right? So I've read them all. I've just read the last chapter a couple of days ago. So I will be saying the positives um like throughout the whole manga, but I will still try not to give away too much. But yeah, there might be some minor spoilers. If I clock something out, I'll either cut it or I'll just put a warning in that. So be aware. Now, when it comes to our positives, one of the things I want to just get straight out of the way, which is something that I think is going to be a common theme when it comes to all of the mangas that I will be introducing, because I'm very particular about this, is the art style. I'm a big fan of this art style. It's not generic. I don't remember the company that makes it. I'll try and put it on the screen after I've made some research, but for now I can't remember it. But like it's a really good art style. It's not the generic style. You won't see the same style as in big anime, big mangas like Solo Leveling or omniscient reader's viewpoint. It is not going to be that type of style, that type of art style, sorry, but it's still very good. It's very clean. And yeah, there's not much to say about it. It's just a good thing. So if you're a guy that that pays attention to this sort of things, then just know that the art style is not going to be a problem at all. The next thing I want to talk about is definitely the fights. The fights, I find it to be a positive, right? So if you're an avid manga reader, you'll probably know that fights are never going to be the same thing as they are when you're talking about, say, anime, right? Because there's no animation into it, so you're basically just seeing a bunch of drawn out panels, and you're basically having to connect the dots yourself, right? So when I say fights are really good, what I'm trying to say is basically that in my mind, how easy do they make it for me to imagine a cool fight, right? I don't know if that was easy to understand, but basically within those panels, does it look like if it was turned into an anime, would it be good? Or is it just or would it just be average, or would it just straight up be bad or just non-existent, right? uh, yeah, so the way I see it, when I was reading this manga, is that they have a lot of potential if they one day somehow end up becoming an anime. The fights are definitely going to be a positive if done obviously by the correct company and whatnot. We don't want a seven deadly sins fiasco happening again. But yeah, they definitely have some really good fights. I find it really easy to enjoy them, and it's like they can get me hype, right? The next thing is our character development. So like this one, I was struggling between putting it as a positive versus a neutral. Not because it's a bad thing, but I think it doesn't go the same for all the characters, right? To be fair, it's a fairly new. It only has 115, 111 chapters. So if we make the mental math, it's probably just only been around for maybe 2 years. I don't know if they've had any breaks in between, but like maybe maybe less, maybe more. So somewhere around 2 years, right? And I'll say this: the characters from the day they started to where they are now, they've been developing well and steady, but it also seems but it can be taken either way, right? So maybe I should have put it in the neutral. But anyway, no matter. It's a positive nonetheless because I like the way he progresses. One thing that I will say is that being a hero, one of the debates that one of the mental debates and gymnastics he goes a lot through is to kill or not to kill, right? This is something that if you've ever seen any hero like manga or anime or anything else, you know that is like it's hard for a guy who wants to save lives to just commit murder senselessly, basically, right? So this is something, but I like it because it goes through it very quickly, right? It doesn't dwell on it a lot. It's not like you're going to see chapters and chapters of him debating on whether or not he should have killed this person. No, as soon as the question pops into his mind, and he has him between him and the sword. They have a little sparring between the two of them, but it comes to term with him fairly quickly, and it just goes about like if he has to be done, it just has to be done. So that's why one of the reasons why I'm popping it out as a positive, because it's definitely not something that they've decided to take their time solving. Is an issue that they came, we saw it, we felt it, and it got solved like that, and that's definitely a good point. And this is obviously pertaining to the main character, but it also extends to some of the side characters as well. One side character is also going through some troubles, feeling like they are weak and maybe they're not worthy of following the hero, right? And in any I've seen it in many of the mangas where a character that has this sort of feelings, they will usually just like end up falling up to the dark side, right? And they'll just do something random because they want to be stronger, and then ended up just screwing up with the whole flow because they'll either become evil, they cause an accident to the hero, all those things. Why a lot of things could happen, right? And that's not the case with this one. That's not the case at all. So what they see is, well, I need to become stronger. So they'll have like a quick acknowledgement of their own weaknesses, and then immediately they'll start working hard towards their goal, and they succeed. They actually become stronger. They actually become a positive. They actually become someone that you like seeing in the manga, right? On to the next thing. I'm gonna say comedy. I think this is going to be the last positive for this manga specifically. Comedy is something that is very important to me, even if it's not a story that is based off of comedy in general. But I just don't think I could devote my time, a lot of my time, into something that I can't laugh at, right? Um, so yeah, it's definitely not something that you're going to be belly laughing at. It's more like you're going to find some parts funny. You might find yourself giggling. But yeah, it's definitely is that the comedy is definitely a positive, I would say, right? Now we're going to jump on to the neutrals. So something neutral that I want to say is, again, this is another one where I was debating on whether or not I should put it in either the positive or the neutral, right? And the main thing about it is because, like I said a lot at the beginning, it's simply not new, right? It's simply it's very generic in those things. Like the goal is very much it has been established since the beginning, so there's not much space for like plot twists and whatnot. Obviously, there is. The manga is still new, so like in that sense, you can kind of expect some plot twists eventually. But like as far as we're concerned, a lot of the other stories where there's a hero and there's a demon king, you kind of just know like where is it going to go, right? And especially when the MC is either the hero or the demon king, there's going to be a fight between them. That just seems like that's the process that's the route that's going to take, right? And through the arcs that I've seen, a lot of them like I don't. There's no specific pattern on it, right? It's not like they it all mapped out between A, B, C, and D, if that makes any sense. But it's still something where if you has any sort of experience around this sort of stories, then you like immediately well you won't be surprised. You know, it's like you're gonna just be baffled about these things, right? But just because it's very much predictable, it doesn't mean it's bad at all. I still think it's very enjoyable. It's a very good read. So yeah, that's why I'm putting it on the neutral rather than the negative or positive, right? The next neutral for me is romance, right? And you might find it weird because it's obviously not a romantic manga, so why would I even be talking about romance? Well, I'll tell you why. Because I'm a romantic at heart. I love romance. I love a well done romance, right? I don't like it when it becomes the sole focus of the story. I don't like it when they dwell on it too much. Don't get me wrong. I also think that they should focus on the main plot more than anything. But if you're going to hint at some romance, then just do it well, right? Do it good. You know what I mean? Don't tease us. And this is and there's a reason why I didn't just put it on the negative is because I've read a lot of Korean mangas, right? I've seen a lot of like TikToks that make fun of Korean dramas, K dramas, and whatnot, and which makes me think that this is their idea of romance in general, where there seems to be some problem with the girl and the guy getting together way too quickly, so they need to take their time. Right, and this is my reason for not putting it on the negative and putting it on the neutral is because if you have again, if you have experience with the genre, if you have experience with the way Koreans write their stories, then you won't necessarily be surprised that after 100 chapters they're still not together. But at the same time, it's like, come on now, like let's not do this. Don't waste my time so much. Don't tease us so much about whether or not they'll end up together, and like just don't do it 100 chapters after, right? Like I said, I have said before, it is a new manga. It's only 2 years old, or give or take, right? So I am in hopes that they don't dance around this topic too much and just make it happen, right? There's nothing wrong with the girl and the guy being together in the beginning of the story as long as they stay together until the end, right? Just give us more, just fix this side of the problem, right? And it's no longer debating his feelings, and then we can move on with the story. Just let him acknowledge it. There's nothing wrong with that, right? So I'm having high hopes that it gets better, but for now, I'm just going to leave it on the neutral, right? Now, the last neutral point I want to talk about is coherence, right? And what I mean by coherence is like a lot of things, or I'd let me not say a lot because I might give the misconception about it, but there's some things that just straight up don't make a lot of sense, right? So this isn't new, but it's something that I pay attention to because it's important to me. Which is like like some of these stuff that you're doing, it just like it just doesn't fit well how people wouldn't just understand it. Like, let me explain, right? So obviously, as I said at the beginning during the synopsis, he it's still too early for for the hero sword to come down. So for this next year, he's supposed to be hiding it, right? So no one's supposed to know that he's the hero. Okay, and that's fair enough. That I don't find it to be a bad point. Now, my problem with it is that he consistently does a lot of things that he couldn't do with a regular sword, right? So the hero sword has this one mechanic that it can camouflage. So if he wants to look like it's a regular sword, then he can do it, right? And that's fair enough. But then he's picking up a regular sword, apparently a regular sword for other people to see, and he's doing the most holy bullshit that he could do, and people are supposed to just look at him and think, huh, that's normal. Obviously not, right? Obviously not. Because if you make the sun shine through your sword, right? Obviously, I'm going to think, well, you either have God within you or you're using a holy sword, right? If I'm in a world where a holy sword is a possibility and I see some guy making the sunshine through their sword, I'm just going to think, I'm sorry, but let me know. Do you have the goddess within you, or are you like, is that the holy sword? Is that the holy sword? Like, tell me something, because I just feel like those things don't make sense. And it feels like they're either ignoring the characters in there are either ignoring the obvious, or they're just trying to make it seem like he's hiding it well when that's not true, right? So there's this ranking system as well in the manga, where basically the main character, this is kind of a tiny bit of a spoiler, so I'm sorry, but it's not too big because it doesn't change anything in the story. But basically, he registers as an adventurer so that he gets to explore the world, right? And adventurers held they'll have their own ranking, right? Because that's just the way it is. It starts off as a D rank, C, uh, B, A, S, so on and so forth, right? So the way it works is if you want to go B rank and above, you need to be able to control your aura, right? Obviously, he can't control his aura just yet. He was in school just basically a week ago, so he's not just going to all of a sudden be able to control aura. So he's still he starts off as a D rank as he should, and then he progresses to the story, goes to C rank, right? One of the first arcs of this manga, there's a situation where basically they're fighting an evil group, and whilst fighting this evil group, he basically does this completely hero attack. Like there's no mistaking it that this is the hero, the like the swordsmanship of the hero, right? And one priest, I think is actually a bishop or something, sees this attack and still says absolutely nothing about the fact that that's the hero sword style. Like, what is this? Don't pretend to be stupid. Look at it. It looks like the hero. It shines like the hero. It's obviously the hero, right? And they just pretend to ignore it. And this is why I'm just gonna have to say, like, it doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense that so many people are just ignoring the fact that this kid who is not even supposed to be able to control aura all of a sudden has this much power to them, and people just ignoring it. That just doesn't make much sense, right? Anyway, that being said, um, yeah, it's not bad enough. The coherence is not bad enough for me to put it as a negative, right? I still find it that they make it make sense eventually. It's just something that can be frustrating. So I'm putting in the neutral as in sort of a look. Watch out for this, because if you're anything like me, you might be frustrated for like a couple of chapters until they actually make some sort of explanation up to make everything go be okay, right? So don't just drop the manga because you think, oh, that's not coherent. No, just give it like another chance. Give it another chance, right? That being said, right, those were all for the neutrals, and now on to the negatives. I will be honest, I don't have anything for the negatives for this one in particular. It's not that it's a perfect manga; it's just that there's nothing that they do so bad that I just have to single it out and put it on the negatives, right? I guess if I had to say, maybe something that I would is how fast they are to just forgive, right? So there's some people who are just plain not good, right? Under they or they've done some bad stuff, and even still, like it just seemed like they're okay with just not putting them away because they did something kind of good, right? I'm making it a bit confusing on purpose because if I go into too much detail, I might actually end up spoiling something. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. I just say that like I would just say that like the way they go about forgiving the evil people is a bit too quick to my liking, but then again, it's such a small detail that I don't think it matters a lot to the story. And that's why I'm just, for this one in particular, I'm not going to give it anything negative specifically. I'm just going to leave it. I'm just going to leave it here and let it be known that if there's one thing that is negative, is the way they go about forgiveness. They are way too quick to forgive, right? And yeah, that's going to be it for the video, or for the recommendation, right? If I had to give a rating, I'm just going to go ahead and give it a rating. I would say that this, in comparison to all the things I've read, and from 1 to 10, I would give it a solid 7, right? I'd give it a 7 because is slightly above a casual read, right? I found myself to be very like into it. It did catch my attention in a lot of times, but at the same time, I wouldn't say it's just like, oh, this is. If someone asked me to recommend a manga, this wouldn't be my immediately first response. But at the end of the day, it would still be a response eventually. So I'll give it a 7 because it's definitely good. It's definitely slightly above average, but I also can't put it much higher because it's so new. Right, they have so much chance to just screw it all up that it would be unfair for me to give it a scoring any higher than this. But yeah, that's going to be it for today. Thank you so very much for watching. Let me know if you had already read this one before. Let me know if this is the first time you've even hearing of it. If did I convince you to even give it a try? Like if you are in need of a website to read it, I'm going to put it in my description. The website I use it is called Ashura Comic. Right, Ashura Comic. I'll put it there because I might not be pronouncing it well, but it's my main one because they just seem to have all the good ones in here. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. You have a nice day. It's been your boy Supreme King, and I am out.